Greetings, Falcon fans. Omar Moore here with another edition of the Orns Friday Focus for Leicester City versus Watford on Sunday, November the 28th, 2021, match day 13 in the Premier League. Watford coming off their most impressive performance and victory of the season, a 4-1 hammering of Manchester United last week at the Vic. And Watford will be looking to continue that kind of performance and result at the King Power when they visit Leicester there this Sunday. And it will be interesting because, first and foremost, what jumps out at me about this fixture coming up is the fact that both managers of these teams have managed both of the clubs involved in this fixture. Brendan Rodgers is the current manager of Leicester City. He was also, of course, the head coach at Watford at one point. Claudio Ranieri returning to the scene of past exploits, a Premier League title with Leicester City when he was manager there. He, of course, now is the current Watford FC head coach. So that will be a very interesting thing to see how that particular situation shapes up, as it will be an emotional return for Ranieri. I think this may well be the first time he has returned as an opposing manager in the Premier League, although he may have done so with Fulham. I do not know for sure on that. I did not check. But one thing I did check is the way that these two teams are going form wise. Leicester City have been rather scattershot this season, very inconsistent. In fact, they've had a very disappointing season thus far. A team that was expected to be in the upper reaches of the Premier League this season, at least at the start, if not at the finish, are nowhere near the top six. They are languishing in the bottom half of the table now. And it's very strange to say that about Leicester City, who have, of course, garnered their fair share of success of late. They won the Community Shield. I like to call it the Charity Shield earlier this season, before the season started, by beating Leicester City, Manchester City. And of course, last season, they defeated Chelsea in the FA Cup final. So Leicester City have had their fair share of successes in cups and in charity shields, but they just have not had that much success in the Premier League since their title winning season of 2016. Leicester have, particularly over the past few seasons, been good, but have just missed out on, in some instances, on Champions League football. They did so again this past season. They finished fifth once again for the second consecutive season running. And Brendan Rodgers now is looking to push this team forward as they come into this fixture in a very indifferent way. As for Watford, coming in with a head of steam on them after the victory at home against United last week, the victory that saw Ole Gunnar Solskjaer gone from management at Manchester United, and saw Watford's confidence rise sky high. And I hope that Watford's confidence continues, because that's going to be a key here. Watford are going to have to bring the kinds of things they did in the Manchester United game to the game at the King Power and be on the front foot from the start. Leicester will be quite content to give Watford all the possession they would like. Leicester, of course, operate primarily as a counter-attacking outfit, and at home they are used to being on the counter-attack. That is where they are most comfortable. So don't be surprised if Watford have the majority of the possession. Of course, it will be what Watford do with that possession that will count, of course, the most ultimately. And if Watford come out with the same kind of mentality and purpose that they did last week against Manchester United, there's no reason why Watford can't pick up at least, at minimum, a point here against the Leicester City side that, again, as I said, is out of sorts at the moment and have been for a number of weeks this season so far. Watford, of course, looking to build on what they did last week against Manchester United. It would be, if they could get it, a second consecutive victory. If they could get that, that would start to push them away from that dreaded bottom three. Watford at this start of this particular after match day number 12, Watford moved into 16th place, up one place, and are looking to build on that further. This is a massive game for Watford now, because they come into it with confidence, but they come into it also knowing that the following two fixtures are both at home against teams that are currently in the top three. In fact, at this moment, in the top two, Chelsea and Manchester City, in that order. Those are the next two teams up for Watford on the menu. And Watford have not had good success, especially against Manchester City at Vicarage Road. Of course, the last time Watford defeated Chelsea at Vicarage Road was that sensational performance back in 2018 when they ran out 4-1 winners on the night at the Vic on a Monday night. Now, we'll see what happens, of course, in those games when we get to them. But first, it is the small matter of Leicester City. This is a game that I think many Watford fans would say is a winnable contest. But that's the thing about the Premier League. Beware of what you may predict, because quite often there are times when you can be sorely wrong about the way these games play out. Watford hopefully will have Ismail Assar, although it is not sure as of the time I'm recording this video whether he will be fit and available to at least be on the bench following the injury that he suffered during the game against United last week. And it also remains to be seen whether Nicholas Nkulu will be part of Watford's squad going into the one at Leicester. And also, we'll find out about how it's going with the other players who have been injured of late, whether it is Christian Cavaselli, will he find a way into the matchday squad? And Francisco Sirialta still perhaps another, maybe a couple more weeks, if not more than that, away from appearing for Watford. He has not been in a Watford shirt playing for Watford in the Premier League since the injury he suffered against Leeds United. That was back in October. So it's been a while now for Francisco Sirialta. He picked up his latest injury, a hamstring injury, during the international break, just as he was coming back into full fitness for Watford. And so now his return is going to be prolonged at this point. But the bottom line here is that Watford have to get off on the front foot as they did against United, come out with the same energy, purpose, and passion that they did against United, and stick together defensively as a unit. Make sure that you close down the spaces and repel the counter attacks by making sure that Leicester have very little time on the ball. That is going to be a key. Now, Watford cannot do this throughout the entire 95 minutes of a game. It is really going to require a lot of discipline and energy, but you cannot possibly press for 95 consecutive minutes. It's just really something that a team does not do. And of course, it's exhausting to do that. And no team does it for that long. So Watford will have to pick and choose when to do it. But particularly, I think, to set a tone early, it might be a good idea to spend the first 15 to 20 minutes of the game doing this, and then ride your luck on that and see what happens on the counter attack once you win the ball back. I think a big part of this particular game against Leicester is going to be about ball retention. How well do Watford retain the ball after they've gotten it back from Leicester? Can Watford retain the ball long enough and string together some passes, some quick passes, and some good movement in order to put themselves in positions to score? Now, on the road, you only get so many chances to score. And it's going to be very important that Watford take those chances the way they did last week when they were at home. The whole focus of the last few weeks, I think, for Ranieri has been to build a solid defensive base, to build a balance all the way up the pitch in all three phases of play: defense, midfield, and forward attack, and also to maintain and build, I should say, a balance between the performances at home and the performances away from home. Now, Watford, I think, generally speaking, have played better away from home in these games in the Premier League than they have at home. But the key is that they got a massive victory at home last week. Now it is very important that they consolidate that victory and win away from home at Leicester to really build their confidence and consolidate the win that they had against Manchester United and see them start to move up the table. A win against Leicester could put them right around mid-table. That is really where the state of play is, as there's about a 6 or 7 point gap between the 18th place team or the 17th place team and the 10th place team. It's about 7 or 8 points. And so if Watford can get a victory against Leicester on Sunday, then they certainly are in a particular position where they can actually move well away from that bottom three. But it's not going to be easy at Leicester. Leicester are going to be hungry for a win. They've dropped at least their last two home games in the Premier League, losses to London clubs Arsenal and Chelsea, and they don't want to make it three home losses in a row. As for Watford, Watford are looking for their first back-to-back wins in the Premier League this season, and they're also looking for their first clean sheet of the season. They still have not recorded one in the Premier League. In fact, if you look at the games that they have played, including cup competitions, they have only had one clean sheet. That was the game where they defeated Crystal Palace in the Carabao Cup by a score of 1-0 at the Vic back in August. It's been a long time since Watford have had any kind of clean sheet, and they've not had one in the Premier League. And on Sunday, it would be a good place for Watford to start. Now, Watford will have back Uraj Kuchka, who, of course, served his one match suspension. And, of course, they will have all of their forward line, and hopefully hopefully Saar will be involved as well. We will find out about Saar, whether or not he will be ready on match day. There also is perhaps a possibility you might see João Pedro in this game starting it if Saar is not going to be available, or specifically look for Cucho Hernandez to start if Saar does not start in this match on Sunday. Cucho Hernandez was very lively in the minutes that he played against Manchester United, and it would not be a surprise for me to see him operating on that right flank, as Dennis will be on the left and King will probably be in the middle, but those always interchange throughout the match as both of them rotate and try to stretch the pitch. I expect a lot of that kind of play again from the forward line to stretch the pitch and to pull defenders from Leicester into areas where they are not comfortable defending. And if you combine that with the ability to retain the ball and make sure that once they won the ball back off of Leicester, that they find areas to exploit and move swiftly up the pitch, I think this could be an uncomfortable day for the home side. But I am not counting any chickens before they hatch. I wish, of course, for a victory, but predictions at this point are a risky business indeed. Watford will have to make it count on the pitch on Sunday. This has been the Friday Focus, the Orns Friday Focus. I'm Omar Moore.